You're on.
All right. So these are all flattened out for the most part. A couple of places where the tape drip. We'll see what the finish looks like under there. I may have nicked it in a couple places, but again, this is mine. It's not a perfect setup. And I want to get them as flat as possible for what we got. So this side is all done, so we can kind of take the tape off of here and see what we're working with. And that's what we got. Get that off there. Get that off there.
Not too
I think
bad.
that's just a residue from the tape. So we have managed to not go crazy and damage anything. And I have a nice flat spot to get the bushings going. A little bit of a nick there. That's alright. I'm not so worried about that stuff. And if you're doing it and you have, you know, different lacquers and things like that, you can kind of do a little refinish job if you want to touch those things up. You know, it could always be sanded and refinished before we do it. I'm not going to go into all that because that's not really a huge concern of mine. Again, this is mine, and I'm okay with a few imperfections when it comes down to it. But if it were somebody else's, I would take the time to resand it and make sure that there were no issues. See, now we're here again. We can just kind of get in here and scrape some of that stuff off the edge there. So we'll drill down through here, 4 bushings. Then they have nice hard surface to sit flat on. They'll fit in nice and tight. It'll keep everything compressed the way it should be, so we don't lose any sound transfer, if any is to be lost. Or that one's a little proud. So again, leave well enough alone. Much of the time is the answer. The enemy of good is better. And we are good enough for what we need to do with this. So those are our plugs. They will fill up the gap for the old bushings.
I feel like it looks a little more dinged up on the camera than it actually is.
Well, no, the camera's probably taking the right pictures. It's been dinged up anyways because it's used.
Yeah.
So, you know, string changes and things like that. You know, and even some of the tapping may have kind of messed up the finish. You know, I mean, this is not their, by any means, top of the line instrument from Eastman. This is a 515 series, so it's good. It's not a bad instrument, but it's definitely not top of the top. So we'll get the, that's basically the idea. We'll get the stuff off of this one here, and we'll start high because it's very proud.
This one was like the one that did not perfectly go in.
Right. So we want to just take little slivers off at a time. The sharper the chisel, the better off you are. But then you got to just be careful you don't take too much off or you're going to dig it out.
Do you want to take those out?
I want to take this off here, yeah, because I want it to be flush, or as close to flush as possible. With
Yeah, but how are you going to put your tuning pegs in it?
Drill it out.
I got to drill it out now.
It was
So this way,
originally...
this, again, like I said in the first video, you would not need to do this if you exchange for the nickel Grover 409s. It is a straight drop. You can reuse the old screws from the Eastman tuners for the 3 center ones, and you can re-drill, and all you have to do is pre-drill and put the 2 screws on the ends. So if this is a project you're going to take on as far as changing those tuners or exchanging them, like I said, mine, the bottom A string tuner was getting stuck with tuning up, and I wasn't able to comfortably or easily tune it up to pitch. I actually had to use a pair of pliers to start getting it. They were tuned down fine, but it wasn't tuning up, so I opted to change them out. But then I figured, let me try to add a little aesthetic to this that I like. And I don't normally like gold, but I thought maybe it would look decent enough, and I think it does when it's all said and done. But this is a lot of work to do to change those properly, to keep everything. I could have kept the nickel bushings, and I could have just reused the old screws and just had like a mixture of gold and nickel, but I figured if I'm going through this much trouble to do it, I might as well just do it. So there's our filled in holes, and so now we're going to get them drilled out.
You just do this on the drill press?
No, I'm not going to take it to the drill press. I'm just going to do it by hand here. I had thought about it, but there's really not I have to make up a wedge to do it on the drill press because of the way the head angle is, you know what I mean, and I'm not going to get a straight drill through anyways. So we got this, and I'm going to get some cleaning stuff to clean this off when it's all done. Definitely get it cleaner than it is, but that's it. And that's the top. So that's your plugs to make your... So that one's still a little proud there, but I will say I think I did nick this one up pretty good. But again, my personal mandolin, not overly concerned about it. A little thicker tape may have been beneficial, but again, you're still going to have to deal with some level of stuff. The tape is always going to leave a little bit of gap in there, so. But we can buff a lot of that out. I actually have a Dremel. I can probably buff that out, put a little buffing compound on there. Matter of fact, that's what we will do. We will get some buffing compound and we will buff out some of those scratches. And we'll take care of that. So, that's the next step. After we drill all this stuff done, I'll get some buffing compound. I will buff that out. And we will be done with that. This is, again, a little easier because they're tiny. And they'll be dry a little bit anyways. Put those out of there. Could have waited a little bit longer for this, but not a huge deal. Again, the new drill, the new screws going in here are gonna just push that to the side, and it's just gonna make it stay. So, and again, if you have a little Japanese pull saws, some of them are real fine for some of this stuff. And work real well. I love those saws. They worked really well when I was involved in cabinet making. So we'll just kind of get these guys cleaned up a little bit. And again, this is all getting covered. Still, I'm going to try to eliminate some of the gaps in there. I noticed with the Grovers too, if you're doing it, just so you're aware, and it shouldn't be an issue where the holes are, but if you direct your attention here, you will see there are little tiny washers, and I can't really get them. It might come up easier with a chisel. Little guys right here that create a little bit of a gap in there. It closes up pretty decently with some pressure from the screws, and I think when it's all said and done, redoing these holes, you'll be able to tighten down a little bit more, but they do have those, so just be aware of that if you're changing them out. I imagine it's the same on the nickel ones as it is on the gold ones.
Are you posting these?
Yeah, we're making a little... I read a lot on the Menlin Cafe forums about which tuners to use, and some people said they're a drop-in one, and I am assuming they exchange them for the nickel ones, but I don't know if anybody exchanged gold ones yet, and I figured since I'm doing it, might as well put the how-to up there for somebody who might be interested. Okay. Banana. So there's that. Now we can pull these guys off. There's our plugs when we re-drill. Pre-drill with a tiny pilot hole, and you see we don't have any splitting. I don't have anything from the plugs on top that have created any splitting in there. So that was the goal with reaming out the tops, making sure that we had enough space to put them in properly and do that. And again, these are, I'm going to do a real fine kind of thing with this one because this is not going to get seen underneath. So I'm okay if we damage some finish under here just to kind of get some flat. Again, I'm going to take a little buffer and do that. You can also turn your chisel upside down. If you kind of work with the angle, you can do it. This is not the finest, sharpest chisel, nor is this one. They all have little imperfections in them. This one's got to ding it up too much. So
You could use that fine sandpaper.
I'm just going to use my fine Leatherman here. And we're going to just take a little bit over here. And again, it's all going to get covered by a pretty wide margin. It's a little tedious. But again, most of this, honestly, is going to get drilled out. So you don't really need to go super crazy with it. But in general, this is more about process than it is about finesse. This is a little overkill, what I'm doing right now, probably. Because once I drill the holes, pre-drill, this is not going to be as proud because most of that's gone anyways. So we're just going to leave that be. Anyways, there's that. So now we'll have to grab a pencil and get centered with all these and start a small pilot hole. So you can pretty much eye this up. Be nice if I had a punch. That was a little finer, but I have this one, so we'll start. Do me a favor.
Yeah.
Anybody asking me?
So Emily goes, why did they pay me a doll?
Who pay her a doll?
She was asking why they didn't pay her a doll, and Mom didn't know what she was talking about.
All right. Actually, I'm going to use this because this is a little bit finer of a setup. So we'll get these set up. Again, this is not necessarily needing to be perfect because we have a little bit of wiggle room in here. I'm going to leave a little bit of a space in there. We got to find the right size bit for this. But closer the better to center. And I'm sure there's 1,000 people that are going to comment on the fact that I don't have a spring punch, and that's fine. They are nice, but again, I'm doing this on the dining room table. And we're pretty close to being centered. But we will get these drilled out and fitted, and we'll show you the next little bit.